Okay, I want everyone to hold out their left arms just like this. And loose fists with your fists kind of facing towards you. Yeah, just like that.
Punch yourself.
Imagine this. The year is 1300 and you're riding horseback through an open open field through the English countryside. You search the sky for flashes of brown and white. And you let out a sharp whistle. And the falcon bursts out of the clearing and lands gently and precisely on your gloved arm.
Yeah.
You just experienced a brief moment of a falconer in the Middle Ages. Falconry is a unique sport that has a rich and ambiguous history and is present today. But how did we come to tame such wild creatures? When did the sport originate? What even is falconry? Well, through my research, I found answers to these questions. First, I'll describe what falconry is and some of the equipment that's used and the birds that are used commonly. Second, we'll talk about the history of the sport. And third, we'll talk about how it's present today. Falconry is defined as a sport that uses a bird of prey to go and hunt. And you hunt anything from rabbits to quail to pigeons, anything that the birds will eat. There used to be a distinction between falconry and hawking, just depending on the way that they hunt, because falcons and hawks hunt differently. Robin Oggins, in her 2004 book, The Kings and Their Hawks, describes this precisely. Falcons, they hunt from the air, and they will stoop and dive onto their prey at high speeds, and they'll stun them and they'll knock them to the ground. Hawks, on the other hand, will fly at low altitudes and then burst out at high speeds and grab their prey. But now falconry is used as a universal term for hunting with falcons, eagles, owls, any sort of bird of prey. Now let's talk about some of the equipment that's used in falconry. Most importantly, you have your glove. It's a leather glove usually. You can have a short cuff that's used for small falcons or small owls. You can have a mid cuff that goes about here, that's for larger falcons and smaller hawks. And lastly, there's an eagle glove, which goes out to your elbow, and that's for, as the name implies, eagles and larger birds of prey. The next piece of equipment are anklets, which are like little bracelets for the bird's ankles. And these are pieces of leather that wrap around it, and they're what allows the third piece of equipment, called a jess, to tie from the anklet to the glove. Now a jess is a thin piece of leather that goes through the anklet and attaches to the glove, usually with a metal ring that's on the glove. The last piece of equipment is the hood that's on there. Now this protects the bird from stressful situations, and it covers the eyes of the bird. And if you're transporting it or it's in an unfamiliar environment, this will keep it calm. Now let's talk about some of the birds that are commonly used in falconry. Also in the Kings and Their Hawks, sparrowhawks, goshawks, gerfalcons are the most common birds used in the Middle Ages. But today, really any bird of prey can be used for falconry. However, there are certain limitations due to federal limits, such as with peregrine falcons, which are endangered or threatened. In 2008, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service did revise their overall regulations for this, so you can only get peregrine falcons with federal permits, but things such as golden eagles now only require state permits. Bald eagles, since they're the national bird, they can't be used for falconry here because you cannot possess one, it's illegal. But they can be used in other countries and are used in other countries for falconry. Now that we know what falconry is, let's take a look at how all of this started. Now falconry has an ambiguous yet rich history, and its origins are actually unknown, but James Harding, in his 1891 book, Bibliotheca Exhibitraria, found that there are manuscripts from Japan that said that Japanese princes received gifts of falcons as early as 2205 BC, and that falconry went from Europe from the east to Europe from the east. Now in the Middle Ages, this is where you see falconry very romanticized. You hear about it all the time happening with lords and ladies and kings in the Middle Ages. Now, in that time, it was restricted to the upper class only, because it was high maintenance and really expensive. Also noted in the Kings and Their Hawks, the cost of a falcon was half the year's salary of a knight. And if you stole a falcon, you got a higher punishment than if you stole a slave. They put the value of their birds higher than that of their people.
Wow.
Court life was dominated by falconry, you could see both male and female falconers depicted on tableware, chests, decorative ivory objects, castle frescoes, and tapestries. There was even a set of instructions found by a Parisian bourgeois husband left for his wife to how to train and care for his falcons and hawks while he was away. Now in the late Middle Ages, falconry spread to all classes. Now since owning a falcon itself meant you had a high status, this wasn't enough if you were a king walking around with a gerfalcon and a poor man walking around with a gerfalcon. That wouldn't be okay. So there was a set hierarchy for birds of prey. Albert Magnus wrote in his 13th century book on animals an example of the hierarchy seen. Emperors would fly an eagle or a vulture, a king would fly a gerfalcon, a lady a merlin, a priest a sparrowhawk, and a poor man would fly a male goshawk. Now fast forward to the 18th century, and we start to see a decline in falconry. But why? Gordon Miller, in his dissertation presented in 2006, said it's for two reasons. The first reason was enclosed properties. In the UK, they started enclosing all of their properties and dividing everything up. They would build hedges and fences and ditches to separate their land. Now this proved as a problem because you needed an open field to fly a falcon, and you needed to follow that bird until it caught its prey. Now that would be hard if you had to jump over fences and hedges and ditches all the time. The second reason for the decline of falconry in the 18th century was the growing population of fox hunting in the nobles instead of falconry with the nobles. Now we started to get rifles, and fox hunting was fast and it was exhilarating, it was a ton of fun. And all you had to do, all you had to do was show really high equestrian abilities, jumping over bushes and fences, even chasing down those hawks with a big pack of dogs. And this could be made even more fun if you had faster dogs, stronger horses, and everyone would just get together with their friends and enjoy a day of fox hunting. Now falconry, on the other hand, required a lot of patience. It was slow, you had to carry your bird out to where you were hunting, and it only got exciting once the bird was in the air. Falconry could even be messed up by bad weather, or simply if the bird just didn't want to hunt that day. Because of all of these, falconry, there was a decline, and it seemed as if it was going to stop. Fortunately, through this decline, this wasn't the end. Small clubs of people were still interested in this sport across the United Kingdom and Europe. Because of this, falconry persisted, and it stood the test of time. And because of them, it's still around today. Falconry evolved from what it was to what it is now in a modern setting, and it's applied in different ways, both worldwide and in North America. Falconry evolved beyond a mere sport. It's used still as a means for survival. In the western regions of Mongolia, they take out their golden eagles and they go hunting with it in order to get food for their families. William Erickson did a study in 1990 showing that falcons and hawks were used at airports to scare away birds, to decrease the hazards that the birds pose to airplanes when they take off. Falconry also evolved to be a means of socialization. There are a ton of clubs and organizations around the world, including in North America, there's the North American Falconers Association, and even in Texas, the Texas Hawking Association. Both of these are organizations in which thousands or hundreds of falconers gather every year to meet, just to hunt with their birds and have a good time and talk about falconry as it is. Now, in North America, falconry does not exist without legal limitations, both federal and state. On the federal level, there are limitations with the birds that you can track and use in falconry, as discussed earlier, as with the peregrine falconer with the golden eagle. On the state level, in order to be a falconer, you have to get certain permits. Now, there are 3 levels of permits in the state of Texas. You could be an apprentice falconer, a general falconer, and a master falconer. All of these permits require that you be at that level for a certain number of years and meet certain requirements. Also, in order to gain each permit, you have to pass a knowledge test about the history and the laws and regulations of falconry in your state. And this can vary from Texas to Louisiana to Florida to New York. Falconry is a sport and a pastime that's available to anyone who's willing to pursue it. We've discussed what falconry is, how it originated, its development through time, and how it's present today. Everyone hold out your arms once more, just like this. The year is 2017, and if you choose to pursue falconry, right here on your left arm is where your future partner and companion will be waiting, eager for the next time. Thank you.
Wow.